Good evening, and welcome to our channel, where we bring you the stories that shape our world. Tonight, we dive into a story of power, revolution, and hope rising from the heart of West Africa. This is the story of Ibrahim Traoré, a soldier turned revolutionary leader whose bold coup against the old order has sent shockwaves across Burkina Faso and beyond. But who is Ibrahim Traoré really? What drives his vision? And why does his rise matter not only to Burkina Faso, but to an entire region yearning for change? In this special report, we unravel the complex journey of a man who stepped out of the shadows of military ranks to challenge corruption, foreign influence, and insecurity. Traoré's story is more than a tale of a takeover. It's a powerful movement demanding sovereignty, justice, and a new future. Join us as we explore the rise of Ibrahim Traoré, from soldier to revolutionary leader. The story of Ibrahim Traoré's rise begins long before he became a revolutionary leader. It begins in the dusty villages and modest towns of Burkina Faso, where his early life shaped the man he would become. Born in 1988, Traoré's formative years unfolded against the backdrop of a country facing persistent challenges: poverty, underdevelopment, and political instability. These conditions were the harsh reality for many young Burkinabé, a reality that demanded resilience and a determination to survive. For Traoré, the military became more than a career choice. It was a gateway to purpose and an avenue to serve a nation desperately in need of strong leadership. Growing up in a region rife with economic difficulties and social unrest, Traoré witnessed firsthand the impact of insecurity and the failure of civilian governments to provide stability and opportunity. These experiences deeply influenced his worldview, fostering a profound sense of responsibility toward his homeland. Unlike many who might have succumbed to despair, Traoré's response was to seek strength through discipline and service. The military offered structure and a mission: to defend Burkina Faso's sovereignty and protect its citizens from the escalating threats of jihadist insurgencies sweeping across the Sahel. Traoré's decision to join the military was rooted in this urgent need for national defense. From the outset, he distinguished himself as a soldier with sharp tactical skills and a calm demeanor under pressure. His superiors took note of his dedication and capacity for leadership, qualities that allowed him to rise through the ranks relatively quickly. Yet what set Traoré apart was not just his military competence, but his evolving political consciousness. Unlike many officers focused solely on battlefield success, Traoré cultivated a deeper understanding of the political forces shaping his country's fate. A key influence on Traoré was the legacy of Thomas Sankara, the charismatic revolutionary leader who had once governed Burkina Faso with bold vision and unwavering commitment to justice and self-reliance. Sankara's ideals of anti-corruption, social equity, and resistance to foreign domination resonated deeply with Traoré. While Sankara's presidency ended in a tragic assassination in 1987, his ideas lived on in the hearts of many Burkinabé, including young soldiers like Traoré, who saw in them a blueprint for a more just society. This ideological foundation gave Traoré a revolutionary lens through which to view his military service, not as mere enforcement of the state's power, but as a means to protect the nation's dignity and potential. As Traoré advanced in his career, the realities of Burkina Faso's security crisis became increasingly apparent. The rise of jihadist groups in the Sahel region had plunged the country into chaos. Attacks on villages, schools, and markets became disturbingly frequent, causing widespread displacement and fear. The government's response was often ineffective, hampered by corruption and poor coordination. It was in this environment of crisis that Traoré's sense of urgency intensified. He and many of his fellow officers began to question the existing leadership's ability to protect the country and uphold the values they held dear. This tension set the stage for the momentous events that would thrust Traoré into the national spotlight. His military career was not only a path of personal advancement, but a crucible that tested his commitment to his people and country. It was during this period that he cultivated alliances with like-minded officers who shared his vision of restoring order and dignity to Burkina Faso. This network of reform-minded soldiers became the backbone of the coup movement that would unfold in 2022. What is important to understand is that Traoré's rise through the military ranks was not merely a power grab. It was a deliberate journey fueled by conviction and shaped by the harsh realities of his country's struggles. His experience as a soldier exposed him to the failures of governance, the devastation wrought by insurgency, and the aspirations of ordinary Burkinabe who longed for peace and justice. These lessons were etched deeply into his psyche and would later define his leadership style. Ultimately, the soldier's path was the foundation on which Ibrahim Traoré built his revolutionary identity. It was through the military that he gained not only the skills necessary to command, but also the insight to envision a different future for Burkina Faso. This early chapter of his life reveals a man forged in adversity, driven by a desire to serve, and inspired by ideals that transcended the battlefield. It sets the stage for his transformation from a disciplined officer into a leader daring enough to challenge entrenched power and fight for a new Burkina Faso. In the history of nations, moments of crisis often become the breeding grounds for unexpected leaders. For Ibrahim Traoré, the moment came in September 2022, a time when Burkina Faso was grappling with unprecedented challenges. Years of political instability had weakened the country's foundations. The relentless surge of jihadist violence in the Sahel had devastated communities, disrupted livelihoods, and shattered trust in the government's ability to provide security. Ordinary citizens were growing weary, disillusioned by empty promises and ineffective leadership. It was within this volatile atmosphere that Traoré made his decisive move, a military coup that would catapult him from a soldier in the ranks to the head of state. But this coup was different from many others Africa has seen before. It was not a mere grab for power by a disgruntled officer seeking personal gain. Rather, it was framed as a revolutionary intervention, a call to restore hope and reclaim the nation's sovereignty from failing hands. Traoré and his fellow officers portrayed their action as a necessary step to save Burkina Faso from political collapse and social disintegration. The lead-up to the coup was marked by a growing sense of urgency within the military. The transitional government in place had struggled to contain the escalating violence and address the country's deep-rooted problems. Corruption scandals and political infighting had further eroded confidence. Traoré, known for his calm and strategic mindset, began organizing with a circle of like-minded officers who believed that only a decisive break from the status quo could reverse the downward spiral. On that critical day in September, the coup unfolded swiftly and with precision. Government buildings were seized, key military installations secured, and Traoré emerged as the new leader. What followed was a carefully crafted narrative, one that emphasized responsibility over ambition. Traoré appeared before the nation in a broadcast that would mark the beginning of a new chapter. His words resonated deeply. "We did not come to power to enrich ourselves, but to restore the hope of the people, to fight corruption, and to protect our homeland." This declaration was more than rhetoric. It was a promise to break from the past, a promise to prioritize the people's welfare over political gamesmanship. Traoré's message struck a chord with many citizens who felt abandoned by previous administrations. His youth and relative anonymity became assets, signaling a generational shift and the possibility of real change. However, seizing power was only the beginning. The challenges that awaited Traoré were immense. The insurgency remained a deadly threat. Restoring security required not just military might, but political acumen and strategic partnerships. The economy was fragile, with unemployment soaring and infrastructure crumbling after years of neglect. International reactions were mixed, with some countries condemning the coup and imposing sanctions, while others took a wait-and-see approach, recognizing the complexity of Burkina Faso's situation. Despite the pressure, Traoré maintained a steady resolve. He convened consultations with traditional leaders, civil society, and regional organizations, signaling a willingness to engage beyond the military sphere. His government outlined plans to improve governance, enhance security forces, and tackle corruption head-on. These efforts aimed to demonstrate that the coup was not an end, but a means to a better future. Internationally, Traoré's rise challenged existing paradigms. Western governments, which had long supported civilian rule in Burkina Faso, found themselves at odds with a new leader who openly criticized foreign interference. Traoré's insistence on national sovereignty and self-determination echoed a broader trend in parts of Africa where leaders seek to reduce dependency on former colonial powers and Western aid. For many observers, the coup and Traoré's ascent embodied the frustration of a generation tired of seeing their countries exploited in misgovernance. It reflected the stark reality that in fragile states, military intervention sometimes emerges as a response to governance failures rather than sheer ambition. Yet there was also a cautionary dimension. History teaches us that military takeovers can lead to prolonged instability and repression if not accompanied by genuine reforms and respect for human rights. Traoré's challenge was to prove that his leadership would break this cycle, to transform the military coup into a true revolution that would restore dignity and hope. As Traoré settled into power, his every move was watched closely by his people, his regional neighbors, and the global community. His ability to navigate these turbulent waters would determine not only his fate, but that of Burkina Faso itself. The coup was a bold stroke, but the real test lay ahead. Could Ibrahim Traoré turn a military takeover into a force for lasting positive change? This question remains open, but one thing is clear. Traoré's rise was not just about seizing power, it was about challenging entrenched systems and daring to imagine a different future for his country. His story reminds us that in times of crisis, leadership can emerge from the most unexpected places, shaped by conviction, urgency, and the hope of millions. When Ibrahim Traoré emerged from the fog of conflict and political turmoil to lead Burkina Faso, many expected another typical military leader, someone who would seize power, cling tightly to it, and maintain the status quo for personal gain or narrow interests. But Traoré has sought to defy these expectations. His leadership is shaped not merely by the desire to hold power, but by a revolutionary vision that reaches far beyond the confines of traditional military rule. Understanding this vision is crucial to grasping why his rise resonates so deeply within Burkina Faso and beyond. At the heart of Traoré's vision lies a profound connection to the legacy of Thomas Sankara, the charismatic and transformational leader who governed Burkina Faso in the 1980s. Sankara's presidency, though tragically cut short, remains a beacon for those who believe in radical change rooted in social justice, sovereignty, and anti-imperialism. Sankara's efforts to uproot corruption, empower the disenfranchised, promote education, and break free from neo-colonial dependence inspired a generation. For Traoré, Sankara is not just a historical figure, but a guiding light, a symbol of what Burkina Faso could become. Traoré's speeches and policies echo Sankara's rhetoric in powerful ways. He speaks openly about the failures of previous governments that, in his words, sold out the country to foreign interests and neglected the needs of their own people. His calls for transparency, accountability, and national pride are more than political slogans. They are foundational principles shaping his administration. He frequently reminds citizens that true independence cannot be achieved if a country remains economically or politically beholden to external powers. One of the most striking elements of Traoré's revolutionary vision is his insistence on sovereignty, not just as a political concept, but as a lived reality. He challenges the long-standing influence of former colonial powers and Western governments in the region. In doing so, Traoré aligns himself with a broader wave of African leaders who question traditional alliances and seek to forge new partnerships on the continent's own terms. His outreach to countries like Russia and China, as well as regional African organizations, signals a strategic pivot away from the West's dominance. But Traoré's revolution is not only about foreign policy or abstract ideals. It is deeply rooted in the urgent social and economic realities of Burkina Faso's people. He understands that the country's future depends on addressing the widespread poverty, youth unemployment, and underdevelopment that have fueled unrest and instability. His government has expressed a commitment to improving education, healthcare, and infrastructure, areas neglected by previous regimes. These efforts are designed to build a foundation for sustainable growth and to empower a new generation that can take ownership of the country's destiny. Equally important is Traoré's rhetoric about anti-corruption. Corruption has long been a cancer eating away at Burkina Faso's institutions and public trust. Traoré's administration has launched investigations and promised to hold officials accountable. signaling a break from the past culture of impunity. While the real impact of these measures remains to be seen, the message is clear. The revolution will not tolerate theft of public resources or betrayal of the people's trust. However, this revolutionary vision comes with enormous challenges. To translate lofty ideals into tangible change requires navigating a complex web of internal and external pressures. Internally, Traoré must manage a fragile coalition of military officers, political actors, and civil society groups, each with different expectations and agendas. Externally, the balancing act between asserting sovereignty and maintaining vital international partnerships is delicate and fraught with risks. Moreover, some critics caution that military-led governments, even those with revolutionary ambitions, often struggle to institutionalize democracy and respect human rights. There is a danger that power could become concentrated, dissent stifled, and reform stalled. Traoré's challenge is to prove that his leadership can avoid these pitfalls and instead foster inclusive governance and genuine participation. What makes Traoré's vision compelling, however, is the hope it ignites among many Burkinabe who have endured years of neglect and violence. His rhetoric gives voice to their frustrations and aspirations. He embodies the belief that change is possible, that sovereignty means more than just independence on paper, and that the fight for justice must continue against entrenched interests. In this sense, Ibrahim Traoré's leadership is a bold experiment, a test case for whether revolutionary ideals can survive and thrive in the 21st century African context. His vision challenges not only the politics of Burkina Faso, but also the assumptions of the international community about what leadership and progress look like in fragile states. As the story of Traoré's revolution unfolds, it asks all of us to reconsider the meaning of power, justice, and freedom. It reminds us that revolutions are never simple or guaranteed to succeed. They are struggles born of frustration and hope, discipline and courage, risks and sacrifices. Ibrahim Traoré's rise is about more than a military coup. It is about a vision that dares to imagine a Burkina Faso where the people truly reclaim their country, where sovereignty is respected, and where the chains of corruption and dependency are broken. Whether this vision will become reality remains uncertain, but its very existence marks a profound moment in Burkina Faso's history and in the broader story of Africa's quest for self-determination. The most immediate and visible challenge that confronts Traoré is the ongoing security crisis. Burkina Faso remains at the epicenter of the Sahel's violent insurgency, where jihadist groups linked to al-Qaeda and ISIS wreak havoc across borders, destabilizing communities and overwhelming military responses. Since taking power, Traoré has promised to restore security, yet the violence has persisted, forcing him to confront the limits of military force alone. The insurgency's decentralized nature and deep roots in local grievances make it particularly difficult for military victories on paper often translate into temporary relief rather than lasting peace. This challenge is compounded by the socioeconomic conditions that fuel instability. Burkina Faso is one of the world's poorest countries, with a large portion of its population living below the poverty line. Youth unemployment is high, education infrastructure is weak, and many communities suffer from lack of basic services like clean water and healthcare. For Traoré, addressing these systemic issues is as critical as combating militants. Failure to improve living conditions risks alienating the very people whose support is essential for peace. Moreover, the coup that brought Traoré to power has isolated Burkina Faso diplomatically. Several regional and international organizations, including the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, initially condemned the military takeover, imposing sanctions and threatening diplomatic isolation. These punitive measures restrict Burkina Faso's access to financial resources and international aid, further straining the country's fragile economy. Traoré faces the difficult task of rebuilding trust with the international community while asserting national sovereignty and resisting external pressure that he views as neo-colonial interference. Corruption, a long-standing cancer in Burkina Faso's political system, remains a formidable obstacle. Although Traoré has vowed to root out corruption and hold officials accountable, entrenched networks resist change fiercely. Fighting corruption is not just a matter of enacting laws, but requires systemic transformation of governance, judicial independence, and cultural shifts in how power is exercised. Progress in this arena is slow and fraught with setbacks, testing Traoré's resolve and credibility. Human rights concerns also shadow Traoré's leadership. Military operations against insurgents have sometimes resulted in civilian casualties and accusations of abuses. Balancing the need for security with respect for human rights is a delicate tightrope. How Traoré addresses these issues will be a significant measure of his government's legitimacy and its capacity to foster inclusive governance. Despite these daunting challenges, Traoré's leadership style reflects a pragmatic awareness of the complexities he faces. Unlike some coup leaders who cling to authoritarian control, Traoré has shown openness to dialogue with civil society, traditional leaders, and regional actors. His administration has made efforts to engage citizens and communicate transparently, attempting to build a broad base of support beyond the military. Yet time is not on his side. The people of Burkina Faso demand tangible improvements, not just promises. They watch closely as Traoré grapples with the reality of governing amid crisis, hoping for a future where security, prosperity, and dignity replace fear and instability. The reality of leadership for Ibrahim Traoré is a daily battle against forces both internal and external, physical and political. His revolutionary vision is tested not just by enemies in the field, but by the weight of expectations from a weary populace and the complex dynamics of international relations. Success will depend on his ability to balance strength with inclusivity, resolve with flexibility, and idealism with the practical demands of statecraft. In this crucible, Traoré's journey offers a powerful lesson about the nature of leadership itself. It is not merely about seizing power, but about the relentless, often humbling work of sustaining it in service of the people. His story is still unfolding, a testament to the courage required to lead in times of crisis and the profound challenges that come with revolutionary change. As Ibrahim Traoré's story unfolds, one thing is clear: the fight for Burkina Faso's future is far from over. It's a story of courage and conflict, hope and hardship, a reminder that true change demands more than bold actions. It requires unwavering commitment from leaders and people alike. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of a revolution. Stay informed, stay engaged, and remember, every voice matters in the fight for justice and freedom. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below, because the conversation about Africa's future is just beginning, and you're a vital part of it.